All right, last topic in chapter 7 for us is VPNs. VPN is a network connection encrypted from end to end. So it actually creates a private connection to a remote network or a remote computer, oftentimes to a public resource like the internet. So a lot of times people will call this a tunnel because we're using encryption to create a dedicated connection or a connection between two entities through a public space, again, like the internet. So I might rely on these public transmission networks already in place and reduce the cost of having these high expense connections between two resources just simply using a VPN, using connections from small offices back to a headquarters, using the ISP connection that you already have to that facility. We can loosely classify them in three different categories: site to site, client to site, or host to host. Site to site. Here, tunnels connect multiple sites on a WAN. So each site is going to have a VPN gateway, could be a router or a remote access server on the edge that establishes the secure connection. So the gateway with the VPN software is going to encrypt and decrypt everything and create the tunnel. All the devices and everything behind them don't need anything special. They're simply going to use that router or gateway encrypted connection to connect back to the home office. So everything in the site is funneling through this gateway. So here, all the devices at this branch office are going through this VPN gateway. It's doing all the encryption and setting up the tunnel and everything back to the central office, the home office, if you will. That's your site-to-site VPN. This gets used a lot for, let's say I actually start having I have a business and I start getting large enough that I might open 2 or 3 different stores. I might have all those stores connect back to the home office, the original store, using the VPN connections, using a Comcast or a Verizon type connection. I could set up VPNs between all of them and act like we have our own little corporate network, if you will. Client to site VPN. Now we have maybe remote users that need to connect back to the home office. So here, remote clients, servers, others establish a tunnel back through to the office. So let's look at their picture first. Come on, here we go. So we have all these different users, mobile users or home users, telecommunication or telecommuter. I'll get it out. Telecommuters, or a small remote office would actually connect back to the VPN gateway here to the home office. So in this case, these devices out here would need to have some sort of VPN software on them. Each remote client or device needs to have VPN software on them to be able to create this tunnel back to the home office here, this guy right here. So in the company, you would need to make sure these devices have the software installed and directions for these users to set up the VPN connection back to the home office. Host to host then would be just 2 nodes connecting to each other, and each one need to have their a VPN software to be able to communicate with them. Maybe not the most common of the options. These two tend to be pretty common: site to site and or client to site. VPN software is often embedded in the operating system of things like your remote access servers. Not a problem. But if I have like these clients that we're talking about, I might need to install OpenVPN or some sort of program that will do the encryption and the setup to an existing VPN gateway. Okay, so I might need to actually install that in, as we were saying before, with the individual telecommuters connecting back to the home office. If you have a large organization with multiple VPN connections, you might need an actual VPN concentrator, something that's going to receive all these VPN connections coming in from the remote users to connect into the resources at the corporate office, home office. So I might have all of these users out here coming through. This VPN concentrator handles all of those connections and routes them to the appropriate resources at the home office network, if you will. 2 primary encryption techniques used by VPN, IPsec, as we mentioned before, and SSL. Excuse me. A particular type of enterprise VPN using Cisco devices actually has a dynamic multipoint VPN. This dynamically creates VPN tunnels between different locations. Rather than having dedicated constant static tunnels all the time, it can dynamically make a VPN connection, use it, and then basically tear it down, giving some flexibility. And that's what they're showing you here. Can dynamically set those up, use them for transferring data, then shut them down, instead of having all these dedicated connections set up all the time. With VPN, we do have some VPN tunneling protocols that need to occur, like we said with IPsec and SSL. So with that, the complete frame and everything is encapsulated and transported inside the normal IP packet. So I have, here's my my PPP frame and everything else. It's going to get dropped into the whole entire IP packet. So many tunneling protocols operate at the data link layer, and some actually work at layer 3, which enables additional features and options for site-to-site VPN traffic. And that's what you're seeing here. This is actually getting dropped into an actual IP packet for use across the network. We have PPTP, LT, L2TP, GRE, and OpenVPN are the different tunneling protocols that we run into. PPTP, point-to-point tunneling protocol, older one, encapsulates VPN data frames, and this one pretty much outdated and no longer considered secure. We often see this one, Layer 2 tunneling protocol, developed by Cisco, standardized by Internet Engineering Task Force, encapsulates PPP data in a similar manner to the other one that we mentioned, except in used by multiple vendors. There's the reason it's a little bit more common. So this one is implemented by IPsec for security. So Layer 2 tunneling protocol and IPsec combination is considered secure and acceptable for most situations. That's the one you typically find. GRE, generic routing encapsulation, developed by Cisco. Layer 3, used to transmit PPP and IP, and used in conjunction with IPsec to increase the security of transmission. So sometimes you see that when you're working with router connections. And then OpenVPN. This one a lot of times gets used when you have the remote users connecting in. This one you're using OpenSSL for encryption on that one. Alrighty. I almost forgot about this one, the URIC version 2. Component of IPsec protocol, as we saw earlier, the key exchange. When we were talking about key exchanges, a lot of times this gets used as well. Alrighty, and there is the last piece of Chapter 7.